You have to either choose a US or choose Southeast Asia. You can't do both. We figured out that, hey, we must constantly evolve our product market fit, and we were very aggressive, but we were consistently and maniacally focused on building the product and defining a product market fit throughout. Have I learned enough to do it faster, sooner, better, bigger? Like, absolutely yes, but like every journey is different. Like as I said, like it took us 5 years to even get to a basic product market fit. People focus and talk a lot about innovation. I feel they don't talk enough about curiosity. Humility gives birth to a curious mind, and a curious mind is extremely critical.
Dear listeners, this is your host Siddharth Aluwalia. Today, I welcome Jaspreet, founder of Druva, to 100x Entrepreneur Podcast. It's been 14 years since Druva's journey started. Jaspreet, you are known for your resilience in the SaaS startup ecosystem. Probably you are one of the few builders, along with Greesh, of the entire India SaaS ecosystem. And I'm very proud to say that many startups have followed Druva suits, like Minticles of the world, in their journey to become 100 Mn ARR companies. So Jaspreet, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Siddharth. Appreciate having me on the podcast. Thank you.
So Jaspreet, would like to start from, you're the first 5 years that, you mentioned in our offline conversations. What did it took, from 2008 to 2013, right? How you conceptualized Druva and the initial years of struggle. What went behind, making of Druva's today?
We tend to think of like most startups as like overnight success. In Druva's case, the overnight took a long time, is how we think about it. The first 5 years are like pretty much soul searching. Like what we sell now is what we built in 2013. The 5 years before that, even though we raised sort of Series A seed money like back in 2010, actually a bunch of angel investors first and then Sequoia Capital next in 2011, like all that money was spent towards truly figuring out product market fit. Druva's actually initial product was very different. We were doing disaster recovery for financial sector, the small banks. So initially we had built a product for financial sector and banks for long distance disaster recovery. Like while we could build the product as technologists, we quickly realized that there's probably no market to buy high worth products, tech products, deep tech products for financial sector from unfunded company out of a small sleepy town of Pune, right? So without any funding, we tended to pivot in terms of, hey, what do we solve a problem which probably people would trust us to solve? And we don't have to do door to door selling, but could really make it easy to deploy. So we actually went to build a backup software, which we could put on website, make it incredibly good way to backup content across the wire, across the globe. Like remote data backed up centrally was a sort of a big pitch, and it made incredibly good technology and how do we do system-based backups across the world, across the wire, across multiple systems. Looks like his son is there on the podcast. Say hi to him. While we could build a software and we actually made it available this time right on the internet for people to deploy and download, interesting thing happened. Like we got a call from NASA, we got a call from like variety of large enterprise companies who are willing to really try the software and actually buy it on internet. And they were like Fortune 100 companies in many, many cases. So we could prove the point that we could actually build an IP and distribute using a simple self-serve free trial freemium model. And then came Sequoia Capital. We got funded by Sequoia, and Sequoia actually requested that while we sort of really narrowed down our product market fit and sort of refine it, like they requested if I could relocate to Bay Area, and this whole new thing called cloud is happening. I should give it a thought. So when I moved to the Bay Area in 2012, I met with a bunch of people and sort of really understood that what we're building in software to back up data across the globe, like remote data as a software approach, is actually far more valuable. His entire IP could be built as a cloud service. So in 2013, we launched a platform where any enterprise could protect information across their entire landscape into a single subscription model running out of cloud. And that really took off, and here we are. So 5 years of sort of soul searching, 2 VC rounds raised to really refine the product market fit.
Got it. And what kept you going in the first 5 years? Because as you said, right, there was a struggle for product market fit, getting the right set of customers, figuring out what could scale globally. It must not have been easy, right, those 5 years. And back then, there was no SaaS ecosystem in India.
I think that's the fun part of the whole thing. Like it's the reason it's called venture. You are figuring out stuff. So we very well understood we are on the first of many, many things, and that was the exciting part of it. We also very well understood that look, there's there's one thing which is critical about a startup, that you got to dream big, that you have to have a big idea, and spending a lifetime chasing a big idea is far better than, getting an overnight success on a small idea, right? So we really wanted to find a product market fit where the market is large, the TAM is large, data protection and backup and recovery, disaster recovery, long-term retention, this entire market, even though unless you understand the market close enough, it looks like a very infrastructure market, a $30 billion market. Right? It's a very, very big TAM. We were the first one to actually think and pioneer the whole SaaS-based approach to, change the game. This market was known to have multiple vendors to be deployed to solve a very, very highly complex problem. The joke was it's a 7-vendor problem and you have to deploy multiple parties and the 7th vendor is a god. Ultimately, pray to God it actually works. So to really, really make it work, to actually turn the market upside down and have a subscription option for enterprise to deploy was actually a very, very empowering thing, very, something which we truly aspired to build and do and truly kept us going.
How much time it took to hit, the first 1 billion in ARR?
We initially got immediate traction in software, when you're selling software. Between 2010 and 2013, we actually found like 100 plus customers rapidly deploying. We had to almost redo the entire business because the customer deploying the software were not the same one deploying our cloud, right? So when we were actually focused on deploying cloud, we actually got immediate traction almost immediately. Right? We saw, I think, one of the very large pharmaceutical companies deploy us globally and spend like $1 million plus, like almost within the first year. Right? So that's how we came to realization that this product market fit is actually a sucking sound in the market for what we have to offer. And then we have to like double down, triple down to actually solve the problem. So once we build something good and once we hit product market fit, like there's incredible hole in the market to actually absorb your product and deploy.
And which year was this that you got the $1 million ACV customer?
We started selling the cloud version in 2013 itself. I think I would say March to 2013, if my memory serves me right. And I think by December, in 7 to 8 months, like we had a first $1 million ACV customer. Now, getting one customer doesn't mean the business model is viable, scalable, or repeatable, right? Like the each of these three things, viability, repeatability, and scalability, like we have to spend multiple years to actually get right. So oftentimes when the product market fit is good, you get lucky with one or two really, really good early adopters, but getting to the mid-stage customers and then the mature customers and late-stage market takes multiple years of refining your product and go-to-market engine.
So if you could remember till 2013, before you got your first large customer on cloud, what was the Druva's revenue till then?
Even though, like, if my memory serves me right on the software model, we had hit $7 to $8 million already. But as I said, it was a complete redo of the entire company. We have to burn that $8 to $9 million down on the ground and build it all over again, because these are two fundamentally very different companies. We had a tough choice to make, that do we build a software business by replicating software across the board? Because cloud is not a technology challenge by itself, right? Cloud is also a business model shift, operational shift in the company, right? So we had to almost burn that revenue which we had built in software in the ground to build the company again. So pretty much starting with ground zero on the cloud platform.
If you could explain in layman terms to our listeners, right, what were you building in the first 5 years and what transition you did in 2013?
So the first 5 years, our focus was, if you're an enterprise and you have data, across remote offices and branch offices and end users or sitting anywhere, right? Typically, most enterprise had good, sophisticated software to back up with the job of creating copies of software to avoid any human error, any malware, any ransomware. And we had built a software to actually do backup of data and systems in a remote environment. Think of a manufacturing site and a hospital chain or an educational system or an oil rig, right? So you're finding variety of success of people downloading the software, setting up their backup systems and backing up stuff across the globe. We got Pepsi to buy across their manufacturing site. We got NASA to deploy across their multiple offices across the globe, right? While this was a good business model, we felt that the industry needs a complete shake-up and reboot in favor of cloud, because to actually build a backup system, software is only one piece. Besides Druva, you have to buy compute, you have to buy servers, then you have to buy storage. Then you have to actually buy what's called an off-site location. You have to tier data to a remote location or cloud. And then you have to buy third-party services. You have to buy networking. There were a lot of moving parts to actually just manage data. Remember, think about a company investing in 7 different vendors and multiple systems just to make sure the data is always on, always available. So we felt this is a very fundamental problem for all enterprises, and we got to make it far more easier. right? This cannot be as complicated as deploying in multiple technologies and multiple vendors.
Hi everyone. Before we begin, I would like to share that this podcast is brought to you by Prime Venture Partners, an early stage VC fund led by Amir Somani, Shripati Acharya, and Sanjay Swami. Prime is often the first institutional investor in category defining tech startups in fintech, SaaS, healthcare, and education, such as MyGate, Quizzes, Planet Spark, Bolt, and Clip. To know more about Prime, visit primevp.in.
So the SaaS-based approach involved that we collapse the 7 vendors into a single vendor called Druva. We simply subscribe to our SLA saying, hey, my data is all across the enterprise. If I deploy Druva's agents and sensors, my information is always protected. It's always on, always available across the globe. And that was a fundamentally very, very big promise. Right? Last year, we delivered 4 billion backups with Six Sigma precision, right? We made sure that no single byte of information which was in Druva's preview was ever lost or non-recoverable from ransomware events or any of those things. In fact, we were so confident about what we did in the last 1 year that we even offered a $10 million guarantee on any information lost by Druva ever. Right? So that was a big change coming from a deploy software as you go to actually building a service on top of Amazon and offering a very tightly managed SLAs to enterprises.
Got it. You let go of $8 million in revenue. How hard was this decision to take at that point in time?
It was pretty hard. Initially, we felt like, hey, we could do both. And that's an easy answer for any entrepreneur in any company saying, you know what, how different could SaaS be from building software, just a hosted software? As we got deeper into it, we spoke to customers, we realized, you know what, there are actually a different set of customers who are facing different set of challenges. The company's DNA to actually sell subscription versus sell software, which is downloadable, is very, very different. And if the market is so large that just do one thing and one thing right, even if 30% market comes our way and believes in us, that we'd rather be number one in the world doing the 30% of market versus be a software which could still be good, but we felt could be over time like not a big advantage compared to the market. So given the TAM was so big, like even the decision was very, very hard. Like initially it confused us, confused the board. We're thankful to our investors and board that they let us experiment and think big. It was very, very hard call, but in hindsight, it was one of the best decisions we ever made.
And in the new product, how much you shared that, within 2013, you got your first million ACV customer. How long it took to you to reach 10 mil ARR with the new product?
I think the first 10 million came pretty quick. Probably the next 18 months, we got $10 million of ARR. Then the next 30 took some time because a different problem, different stages. The product market fit takes you along pretty quickly. There's second sound in the market. Building viable and scalable and repeatable processes sometimes takes time. I think this is where Druva's growing pains came in, and we had to sort of learn to get to the next 30, the next 40, and then the next 50, and the next 100. Like it all took some stages of growth.
What changes it required for you, to go from the first 10 to, let's say, 100 million ARR?
The first 10 is basically trying to understand your customer exceptionally well, right? The first million typically proves that you can actually service a need. First 10 proves that there's a market for your need, right? So I think there's a fundamental belief that product market fit, right? That there's a market for the product and it's a scalable and larger market for your product. It's probably a 10 mark is the right mark for it, right? So $10 million, you've basically proven out there's a TAM for your product. There's a sizable need for your product, right? You get there by hiring a very early stage sales team, at least in the enterprise SaaS world, which is a creative sales team, which is empathetic of the customer's needs to understand the customer very, very well and has creative ways to actually sell the product. So in the first 10, as you sell to these probably 100 plus customers, or maybe even more, you're actually learning about the market and its needs and how sort of a selling process may work. Like what is a sales pitch to sell to this product to a customer? The needs are very well defined. From 10 to 100, now you're building a scalable go-to-market motion and probably multiple iterations of it. Because 10 to 50, you have to find the demand engine, like what will be the primary mode of demand creation. Will you go direct to customer through a channel partner, through a distribution mechanism, through a freemium model, a PLG approach? And then you have to figure out a fulfillment engine, like how would you fulfill the needs via deploying a sales team, an inside sales team, a field sales team, and all those things, right? And then 50 to 100, you're making it repeatable, cost-effective, scalable, figuring out multiple verticals, multiple countries, sort of it's an iterative way to sort of scale your go-to-market engine. And kind of along the way from 10 to 100, we are very, very lucky if a single, like what you started off takes you to 100, 200 or more. Usually along the way, like you get disrupted. You get disrupted by competition, by market, and you have to sort of evolve your offering, think about a wider offering, bigger offering, offering, larger TAMs, and sort of evolve along the way.
Was your shifting to US 100% required to make Druva in today what it is?
I think so. It depends the kind of business you are in. We are an enterprise SaaS sort of business, and the proximity to customers and proximity to the talent pool, which understands enterprise customers, is sort of critical for Druva's existence. The certain talent pool, at least back then, or even now, certain talent pool like product marketing, right, which takes a technology and simplifies in messaging, which customers can understand. A repeatable go-to-market engine from an enterprise model perspective. These are engines which are very well refined and very well known in the valley. If you are building a very horizontal play, which anybody in the globe will have a need for, which what we did, US is still the biggest market, and sort of attacking this market, getting a lion's share, building a repeatable go-to-market engine, having product marketing, and all those areas. The Bay Area still is actually a very good place to sort of find the talent, find the access to customer, and sort of get going.
And your advice to enterprise SaaS founders would be to relocate to US, as you said, the largest enterprise in US for SaaS market.
I think it depends what problem you're solving. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who say, hey, I found a bunch of customers in India or Southeast Asia, and now I feel I must come to the US. What is your advice? Right? I think every single time you cross a segment is, mid-market or SMB or enterprise or a vertical, right? Or a country or a region, right? You have to revisit product market fit. Oftentimes the needs change many, many times, right? The country or the region, it's not always easy to assume the country you're entering will obviously have the need, right? Each country may have different level of competition, different type of needs. So segment vertical countries you may have to reassess product market fit, right? What made you successful in Southeast Asia may not make you successful in the US or Europe or enterprise or mid-market, right? So all these things must be revisited. Now, if you do think that your product market fit is viable and good and you've proven it out by getting a few customers, getting a certain amount of scale, then you have a critical choice to make, right? You have to choose either or. You have to either choose a US or choose Southeast Asia. You can't do both because if your product market fit is good, the best company will still take the biggest market pretty quickly, right? So being in two different markets actually doesn't help because these two markets don't talk to each other. They have nothing in common often, right? Different distribution engine, different go-to-market, different customers, different customer needs. So you rather choose one market and do it well until you reach probably about like $100+ million. Once you're 100+, you can be in different countries, different segments, and any of those things.
And have you seen any journeys where the entrepreneurs moved to US and it didn't work out for them?
Never say never. Like there's always cases where it worked or did not work. I'm not actually on top of my head couldn't think about like people who moved to the US. There are a lot of cases where people actually, if I think about it, yes, there are a lot of cases where people simply moved to the US assuming that what they had built in Southeast Asia or India would replicate, and it did not replicate, and actually they have to either revisit or pivot or fold and go back. It's not prudent to talk about on a podcast their names or companies, but yes, a few come to mind for sure.
So how hard it is for entrepreneurs once they have achieved, let's say, product market fit in India, and then assuming that they'll be able to figure out the US product market fit? Or you would advise like when you are zero, just move to the US and then figure out?
Yeah, I would say like oftentimes, like even that may sound harsh, like oftentimes a product market fit in India is a bad news. It's a false indicator of success, at least as of today. I think India or many markets are not easily replicable to the US. So the learnings you have to unlearn them. So bad news from a point of view that the learnings have to be unlearned to probably build a different product. For example, a market like India still buys horizontally. That, hey, can you up aa gaye ho to mera IP address fix kar jao, right? So like a lot of horizontal buying still happens in India while US still buys very vertically, best of breed, which must integrate well, right? Like, so since the learnings are not very easily replicable, like people tend to build on false hope or false expectation when they get product market fit in India. In many, many cases, actually good not to find that product market fit and sort of replicate. But look, this is for a reason called like a venture or a startup that there's never a straight path to success. Many of times you have to just figure out stuff along the way, and like survival, it's a man's desire to survive. Like that's probably like the most critical fundamental factor all along the way.
So Jaspreet, from your learnings, as you mentioned, that entrepreneurs, as soon as they move to the US in enterprise SaaS, that's better for them because then there is no unlearning curve involved for them. कि जो इंडिया में चल गया उसको अब यूएस में कैसे replicate करना है. That's the assumption that every entrepreneur, SaaS entrepreneur, comes to the US at least if something has worked for them in India. Why is this unlearning so hard?
Unlearning is not hard, can be done. it just, by itself, startups are so incredibly hard. You have money to raise, you have competition to take care of, you have to build a product. And now, if there's a sort of a unlearn and learn of new market, it's just a setback. But as I said, like no startup or venture is a straight line. There's probably a multiple detours along the way to sort of get to where you want to get to. So this is just probably part of the process, but still pretty incredibly hard to get done right if you have a setback of this sort.
Dear listeners, before we dive further into the podcast, I would like to welcome Prashant Ganti, Head of Product Management at Zoho Payroll and Zoho Books. Prashant, what does Zoho Payroll do and what is the story behind it?
Zoho Payroll is a payroll solution from the Zoho suite of products. It's designed from the ground up to completely abstract the payroll complexity and put your payroll compliance on autopilot mode. So what do I mean by this? So when we talk about abstracting payroll complexity, we mean that a business needs to know just who their employees are, where they work, and how much they get paid. And on putting your payroll compliance on autopilot mode, what we mean is there are ever-changing rules and regulations that affect your payroll. And Zoho Payroll takes care of all those things. Business need not worry about all those things.
Thank you, Prashant. Dear listeners, you will find more about Zoho Payroll in the show notes. Now, let's further continue with the podcast. And if you could, recollect and summarize what worked well for Druva from 10 to 100 journey, because as you mentioned, there were a lot of, repeatable processes made. What were those processes that, you got right? And we have seen in enterprise SaaS world as well as, even in SMB or mid-market SaaS, that entrepreneurs get lost somewhere in between 10 to the 100 journey, and ultimately the company gets stuck between 15 to 20. There are a lot of companies in that valley that get stuck.
Yeah, it comes down to variety of factor, like almost systematically, all of those have to either work or you have to refine and sort of make them work for you, right? The first and fundamental still remains product market fit, right? Is the market in need and desire big enough? Is the market big enough for you to constantly grow, mature, right? That's number one. And you have to constantly refine and rethink your thinking around that topic. And often the market changes, right? What got you successful early on the first few years, the market demand changes, the competition comes in, somebody else fills the need, right? So that's a viability question, right? And the question comes around repeatability. Like, have you found a repeatable sales motion? I understand my buyer, but I also understand how do I get money from the buyer in a repeatable manner? Like my demand engine, my fulfillment engine, my marketing and sales engine, like these are working together and the metrics are predictable, right? And then comes a scalability question. That is, that what is viable and repeatable? Can I scale it? Can I pour more money, hire more sales team? Like, have I made the learning simple enough that what made 2 reps successful would be same process to get to 20 reps to 200 reps, right? Like, how do I get sales process, marketing process, demand generation scalable, right? That I can simply pour money or build actually the repeatable model can be applied to scale, right? So all these things have to get right. I think for Druva, we had obviously variety of challenges, but we figured out that, hey, we must constantly evolve our product market fit. And we were very aggressive and sort of very almost like along the way, people thought it's a science experiment, it cannot be done. It's too hard, too difficult. But we consistently and maniacally focused on building the product and defining a product market fit throughout. We were always leading edge, bleeding edge to and pushing the boundaries of what the market could take, right? We were maniacally focused on repeatable and viable sales process or a marketing process to see like, hey, let's just make it a scientific means and a repeatable means and an operational means. So literally, how can you make a sales team more productive and better productive in shorter period of time? And same for marketing. So those are the areas we literally focus a lot, put a lot of energy behind it, and got multiple times wrong. But once we got them right, the company sort of started to scale along the way. We got great partnerships along the way, and sort of those really helped sort of propel us forward in multiple markets. So yeah, many of those things sort of, you could call us resilient, you call it fortunate, like we call us along the way, which were actually very, very critical to get to 100.
But if it took 14 years to get fortunate or 14 years for overnight success.
It's true, very much true.
And if you have to, go back and change a few things that, if possible, you could shorten this journey down to 6-7 years. Is that possible? And what would you do different this time?
Getting a cat down a tree is a different trick every time. Like in hindsight, everything is 2020. Like, have I learned enough to do it faster, sooner, better, bigger? Like, absolutely yes. But like every journey is different. Like as I said, like it took us 5 years to even get to a a basic product market fit, and then viability, repeatability sort of had to build along the way. So it's just very hard to think back and change a few things, because it always sounds easy, but there are a variety of variables which you don't even control.
So let me ask you, what are the mistakes that you avoided in this journey?
That's a difficult question for me. The reason I say so is I know a lot of mistakes which I made. I probably wouldn't even know the mistakes I avoided. Somebody probably watching me outside in would say that better. But there are a lot of mistakes I made along the way. I'm not sure which one I avoided.
The mistakes you made.
No, I think the learning curve was how do you hire the right person for the job was always a big learning curve. The learning curve on how do you build a repeatable process. As an engineer, you get trained to sort of work on more, creative means but process is not a thing. But I learned that US may not be the best country. Like it is, besides being a very innovative country, it's also the country to scale innovation. The scale part, the process part is also critical, which as an engineer is not very natural.
If you have to advise a brilliant SaaS entrepreneur selling an enterprise SaaS, top 5 things to do, or 10 things to do to reach the first 20 mil ARR very quickly in a large market, what would they be?
I think there's probably no single answer. Like, look, every entrepreneur journey is very different. Just dream big, think long term, think first principle, fundamental basis, listen to your customers, question where things which don't make sense, think repeatability, think viability, think scalability, like all those things that is fundamentals. If you do well, like in the rest, many variables are not in your control. Like you can have the best wings, but if there's no wind, there's no picking you up and flying, right? So you have to be disciplined to be ready. You have to build the right discipline to be ready when the opportunity comes. You have to strike it. And look, the opportunity could take 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. If your dream is critical to you, if your dream is big enough for you, like you have been disciplined, like you will nail it.
But what was your dream when you started Druva that kept you going for 14 years?
I think my dream, or rather my desire, was sort of to be the best myself. And that's not twofold, right? A, I really was motivated and designed to sort of really be the best I can be and sort of solve the problems which are larger than life. And B, I was also very fascinated about data. And I was always incredibly puzzled at why data management is so incredibly difficult. Right? And when these two came together, I found a challenge worthy of sort of me to solve, and I found a challenge worthy of like customers will actually care about. The relevance is critical before revenue. So I felt this problem was very relevant. I felt that this actually really challenged me appropriately, and sort of Druva was formed.
And what has helped you, this is my last question for you. What has helped you in your learning curve? Is it by reading books? Is it by meeting other entrepreneurs? Is it by, interacting with people like, Shailendra Singh from Sequoia, who are on your board?
I think all the opportunities were great. I had incredible time learning from Shailendra. I still have incredible time learning from him. Many advisors, entrepreneurs along the way. First and foremost, to be even receptive of the learning, you have to be like, humility is key, because you have to be grounded to understand who you are and who you're not, right? And then comes the, people focus and talk a lot about innovation. I feel they don't talk enough about curiosity. Humility gives birth to a curious mind, and a curious mind is extremely critical, and a scientific mind is very critical, right? Like, how are you curious about the world and can ask the questions haven't been asked before, but how you're also scientific in your mind and thinking to sort of make deductions and learnings and theories and conjectures and sort of prove and disprove and learn along the way. Like once you have the right foundation for learning, humility, curiosity, a scientific mindset, like then you're a sponge to actually learn from people, books, and surroundings. And then, of course, I was fortunate to be surrounded by great people. Right? I met great people along the way who taught me great things, and still learning a lot. So it's very critical for entrepreneur and anybody successful, in my mind, to sort of focus on a learning mindset.
Thank you so much, Jaspreet. It's been a wonderful masterclass hosting you on 100x Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.